Ladies and gentlemen, it's 7:30 EST. That's Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to the castle, Card Stock Afterlock. I'm going to be your host today, Will Priester, Chief Justice 06 in the DFS streets. My boy Tyler Tamboline, toe tagging Tambo's in the building. And today, a special guest, a man that has taken down many GPP awards in his day. Numberball.com in our programs, number one in our hearts, Jeff El Jefe Collins. Jeff is in the building. Jeff, thanks for joining us, my man. So excited to have you on. How's everything going your way?
Everything's going great. This is going to be my first show with both of you guys here, and looking forward to it. I've seen your guys' content before. It's good stuff. I am addicted to the cards and the card industry, the buying of them, the researching of them, and really looking forward to talking about it publicly for the first time outside of just some comments on Twitter.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely excited to have you on. Speaking of Twitter, I think people think you might have put out a controversial tweet maybe about a week and a half ago. I think that's definitely something we'll have to visit. I definitely know my boy Tyler is probably on board. I'm on board. Tambo, what say ye, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm happy to be here. Happy to have Jeff on. Excited. Always been a fan of Jeff. You know, meet up with him at a couple of live events throughout the time, and always love his stuff and love what he does. So excited to have him on with us. And I'm with Jeff, man. I'm addicted. I love talking about this stuff. So anytime we can get a new special guest on to go through it just a little bit more is always exciting for me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And listen, one of the things that we do and what I'm going to consider the card industry from here on out, just like DFS, we got to have tools. And that's where Sports Card Investor comes in. I use it avidly daily because I want to know, where the pressure points are, where I can buy now, where I may need to flip if I decide to flip. And that's at sportscardinvestor.com. Listen, if you want to get on board, now is the time. We've got a really good promotion going. 20% off your first payment. That's either whether it's monthly or whether it's for the year, it's 20% off. I suggest the yearly. Promo code GRINDERS. That'll get you that 20% off for your first payment. Our good friend, Jeff Wilson, good friend of the show. He'll be back in a couple weeks. But listen, we're going to dive right in, man. I've got Jeff here. Jeff is somebody obviously we've admired. Jeff, just want to kind of get, your take on things, what kind of made you make the transition into sports card investing, and how did you just kind of dive right in?
I mean, credit to Cam here from RG, who was texting me pictures of cards he had just bought, including like some Warriors cards and stuff. And at the time I'm going like, man, I don't even really care about cards, to be honest. I get it, but I haven't done that since I was a little kid. And then like just seeing more and more, I think the more you get put around it, you start thinking like, wait, why don't I take this up? Like, this is actually a really fun hobby. I had a blast when I was a kid, but now like I actually have money to buy cards. That would actually be a lot of fun. And I started playing around with it. And then when I heard about, okay, well, what's the difference between before where you just ran into it getting boring with everyone having the same amount of cards and stuff, realizing that, well, now that's not the case. Like you can have a one of one of someone. You can have a one of one rookie Brendan McKay like I bought. No one else in the world has. And there's something to that. I don't know why, but it's just a lot more interesting to me to be able to have something that's unique. I think that's what's going to continue to drive the industry forward.
Oh, I love it, Jeff. You mentioned those one of ones. I've got a one of one in my collection as well. Now, it's not a special one. It's a Kendall Fulton. It's his rookie card, but it's a one of one from Obsidian. And listen, while he may not be the greatest player in the world, as you mentioned, I'm literally the only person in the world that has this card. If you want it, you've got to come to me to get it. So I love that take, man. I think that's a really good way to kick off the show. Tambo, kicking it over to you, man. What kind of, making the transition, what drew you into it? I know we've talked offline, but maybe people don't understand, like we've dived in really deep here. What kind of kicked you over to the other side of the yard with sports cards?
Yeah, it's the same as Jeff, what Jeff just said. Basically, back as a child, always into cards, trading them, everything. Actually, if you think back, I was even into Pokemon back then. Pogs, these things were called. I don't know if people remember those, but I was into all these different things. And now the difference is, I think too, was just getting back into it. The COVID break, we talked a little bit about that, was even more hardcore. But just the idea of being able to flip it right? The hustle, we're in DFS. We're going to talk about this later, but we're doing this stuff all the time where we're looking for opportunities, edges, things that we can find. And that's big for me. I think it's almost like a game within a game again, where we're out there finding stuff and then trying to, when's the right time to sell? When's this, when's that? So I'm into it that way. And then kind of like what both of you just said with the one-of-ones, there's definitely an interest there. I talked to Hefe yesterday about it a little bit, actually, before coming out of the show, just saying excited to get on the show with you tomorrow. And paintings, right? You watching the movies, Mona Lisas, things like that. You see them up in people's houses and you think like, that's that's the painting that everyone's going after. If you could have the card that everybody's going after, if you're the only one with it, to me, that's kind of cool. And then Will, you and I have talked about in the past as well, just things about putting it on display, the artwork, the idea of it. I'm a sports guy. That's ingrained to me. My wife knows this. My friends know this. My family, everyone's talking about with me all the time. It's just who I am. So if you come to my house, you're not going to see all these nice paintings up on my wall. You could do both. I'm just saying it's going to be rather a shrine of rookie cards and PSA 10s and things like that. Are good conversation starters and something I'd just rather have on display personally.
Yeah, man. I'm with you guys. Say for me, I think for me, when I started thinking about it, it's like, what am I really passionate about, right? Like, yeah, we get into DFS because, we can make money at it and we can be profitable. But at the core of everything we look at, whether it's sports betting or cars, we just love sports. At least for me, like at the core of it all, I love sports. And so, if I can be profitable, if I can get enjoyment out of it, like I want to be involved. And I think sports cards, we kind of started there as kids, but, it's been rekindled. And, like I said, over the past year, man, it's been really exciting to just get involved in it. Obviously, there are things we all have had to learn. And so I think it's a great, great, great way to keep that sports fire burning inside of you. Like, what if we decide to walk away from DFS? Like, we still got our sports cards, right? We've still got something that we're attached to. Jeff, we're not going to talk about that tweet yet. We're going to let that one go.
I don't even know what tweet you're talking about, man.
Oh, man. Well, we'll get to that. Jeff, next question. I promise we're going to get to it. It might be the greatest tweet of all time in terms of sports card investing. Like, we'll get to it, right? We're going to get to this. Jeff, how does sports cards, right, fit into everything you're doing? Obviously, you've got numberball.com. Obviously, we're still heavily involved in the DFS. But, like, how does sports cards, in terms of carving out your time, because we've all got things pulling us different directions, got a company you're running, basically. How does that fit into everything that you've got going on?
It's not easy, to be honest. If I had more time, I would have already been doing content for this probably, 2-3 weeks ago, once I started to get really excited about it and researched a lot and started to figure out on my own, hey, what should people know from the beginning? And now it's just about, NFL's dying down. So I think that's going to be an opportunity. We're not into baseball season quite yet. So I think there's going to be a little gap there, a little window to where I'm going to have some free time to be able to throw some stuff out there, hopefully some evergreen content that can be useful, whether you get into the industry now and have interest in it now, or if in 3 months when I'm doing, again, more overlap with content and don't have time to do content, you could still watch it and have it be as valuable. But you mentioned Jeff earlier. He does some really good content. That's one of the resources that I've learned a lot of what I've done. So I always like to, if I ever am going to kind of regurgitate information I've heard elsewhere, give props to the original person that was saying it. And I don't know that I feel confident in my ability to put out some valuable information without some of the stuff that he's put out there.
Yeah, for sure. Jeff's kind of, I almost consider Jeff like Chop, right? Like, he's kind of a pioneer. Like, Chop's been around a long time. Jeff's kind of been at the forefront of like the boom, trying to get us educated, trying to put out the content. So I'm with you, man. Jeff's definitely someone, I've been following, for a good while now. Tambo, same question. Like, how does it fit in, man? You got DFS, obviously, you're the golf extraordinaire DFS player, got content for that. How does it fit in, man, to your lifestyle? What most don't know, my man Tambo, I don't want to give away some of the goods, but my man Tambo is also a salesman extraordinaire out in the streets outside of DFS. Same question, Tambo. How does it fit into your lifestyle?
It's like most things, I think, you put what is important to you. And to me right now, this is important to me. I like it. I'm involved. They call it the hashtag hobby. And for me, it is a hobby. So it's just added into the mix. I'm working, I'm doing stuff at RotoGrinders, golf, football, everything. But I think cards is a bigger opportunity. I love to help people, contrary to what some people may believe. That's, why do we do this? People think we're just getting rich off this content or something. It's actually a lot of fun. I personally love helping people. I answer all the DMs that come through. I give it out for that purpose. I think it's exciting. And you just gain so many more friends and people and knowledge from this stuff. I think it's, we're going to talk about this later, how it relates to DFS in general. There's a lot of ways that it correlates. So I think that's awesome and fun in itself. But just like in DFS, where I've made so many great friends over time, like I've met Hefe before because we've been at an event, because we did the same hobby, the same thing that we did, and turned it into something where we can make money with it, end up in the same live final and go there and enjoy a few drinks together and watch the games. That's how these things can work out. And the cards are no different. Like, things are tight right now a little bit because of coronavirus and things like that. And I get it, but that's also helped bring people back together of getting around the hobby in a sense and in a whole. But I think as things grow out, like, what's that big show in Chicago, right? That we're going to see, isn't there a big show, the National or something, like a card show that everybody goes to every year? Like I would go to that, much like I would go to a sports betting national championship for, DFS companies that are putting it on. So it'll be the same thing as things hopefully come back around sooner than later. So mainly just like that, man, making it fit because it's something I love.
Yeah, man. And I'm glad you mentioned that national convention, because I've got a really good friend of mine that hangs out in our Discord chat, and he's going to have a table at the national. He asked me if I was going. I said, yeah, I'm going. He said, well, man, listen, swing by the table, check it out. Let's hang out a little bit. So, it's like you talked about, just like, making a live final. Now, listen, I haven't made as many live finals as Jeff. I've only made 2. But when you go, you do make some friends. I've even made some friends that, aren't really mainstream, like my boy Mick Jester. He's a guy that we kind of connected at a couple of live finals. And while you may not see him as much putting out content, like in terms of NBA, when he was around, like, the guy was kind of a GOAT. So I really enjoyed that. Jeff, I know we've got an itinerary. I want to get to this tweet, right? So a couple, I want to say maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, Jeff put out what I consider one of the greatest sports card investment tweets of all time. Jeff says this: I'm getting away from cash. If I had to invest right now, it wouldn't be in US dollars. It'd be in Bitcoin or crypto, right? And sports cards. And while on the surface, you're thinking, what is he talking about? I just consider that to be a very underrated, greatest sports card investment tweet of all time. Jeff, give us the goods, man. What's your take on saying, hey, I'm getting away from dollars. Give me crypto, give me sports cards.
So that kind of originated just from some personal conversations I was having with people who were saying like, oh man, I can't believe how high this is. The bubble's going to burst for these things and everything. And that was kind of the comment I made. Said, no, it's not even close. Like this, I believe that this is kind of the ground floor, as way more room to go up. And so it's kind of an extreme comment. And once you say something like that, you're like this will probably drive some interest on Twitter, curious what people would think of this. And that is true. Like I believe what I said, that if I had to choose 100% of one or the other, that I would choose cards and Bitcoin. But luckily you don't have to choose. So you can still just have a lot. Right. So that's more where I'm at. I have a lot more than, probably more. We're talking about percentages, more than almost everyone I know into those things. So yeah, that's just kind of how it came to be, and the thought process behind tweeting that out.
Yeah, man. Listen, the GOAT sports card investment tweet, and I think I may have commented on it as well, but I'm with you. And I think we've all kind of agreed on this, like in our own separate little corner. Like, the sports card industry is continuing to rise. It's not going anywhere. And I think as the younger investor comes in, to me, that they're making it more exciting. Like, look at all the companies that are creating all these new ways to buy cards, like Star Stock and Fractional Ownership. I know, Tambo, I'll let you talk about Fractional Ownership because I know that's something you're really high on. But there's so many things that are being created for the industry to make things attainable. Like, yeah, maybe I can't drop $200,000 and go buy a PSA 10 Michael Jordan card. But, fractional ownership's coming around the corner, and maybe I can get 10% of it. Like, I can maybe put 10,000 down. I'm just, 20,000. I may not be able to give up 200,000. So I just think there's so many industry creations. It's kind of like, I'm thinking about DFS. You go back to Fantasy Aces, Jeff, what you know about. I've seen the videos, Draft Street. Like, things evolve, things change. This isn't the same RotoGrinders from 10 years ago. You know, we've got the anniversary t-shirts. Projections improve, tools improve. The industry is going to be huge. So that's kind of my stance on it. Tambo, kick it over to you, and then we'll get into some more questions.
Yeah, he talked a lot about it there. You know, like I said, ground level, what Hefe mentioned, and then you mentioned too just now, like things change, things adapt, game theory changes. We relate it back to DFS. I keep going there because that's sort of the theme of the show. But I think it's the idea of I'm with Hefe, we're on the ground floor. I think there's a lot of little things you just mentioned about fractional ownership. I get most excited about that because I'm in Canada, and for me to get behind something when I buy a card and it takes a month and a half to get here from the States or something like that, or I have to ship my cards and then get them all bundled up and decide when I want to have them sent here. I want to have the opportunity to get in now and then get out. So I have a certain percentage of my portfolio that is investment pieces like that versus how much is for my personal collection. My mail day card later, I got a story that goes with it. I showed both you guys, but I'll tell the whole story on it, is more of a card I'll never sell. So when I see someone say today, you can't collect this type of card because it's a running back or a defensive player or whatever. If you're a real collector, you can collect whatever you want. Just know that that's got to be a certain percentage. Why can't I collect a card that's, a defensive player from back in the day? I want that card. I'm not trying to buy it to flip it. I talk about this every show so far about your intention, your goals, know that stuff going in, and then react accordingly. Note that when you hold a certain percentage, like I just mentioned, of Bitcoin versus card, that's all up to you. You don't have to just be all in on one. That's the benefit to this. So I think there's that. And then I laughed a little bit there in my head, Will, because you mentioned, everybody can't get a piece of this Michael Jordan rookie card. And I actually saw a meme today. I don't know how true this is officially. You probably know more about it than I do, but it was talking about if you put $1,000 into the Microsoft stock back in the day, it'd be worth 2.5 whatever today. And if you put $1,000 into 86 Fleer cards back then, which the MJ cards are now within, you'd be like 4x what your Microsoft stock would have been worth. So it actually kind of ties in stock market being in sports cards and all of that. And I think that's just really interesting based on the fact of how we talk about all the time about sealed wax as an example, and how it can just go up and skyrocket so quickly if you just hang on to it. I looked up today, Prism NFL came out in Canada finally. A couple of my buddies got a few blaster boxes, and they said, how much do you think this could go to? Of course, they run and ask me. I said, well, let me show you Patrick Mahomes' blaster box that sold today on eBay for $1,000. And they just picked this up for $35 at Walmart. So it's crazy, man, the amount that you can see these things go up. But that's to me is the biggest thing.
Yeah, man, I'm with you guys. I'm going to move it to the next section. And let's kind of talk about some pitfalls, like some things that may have been challenges for us as we got started. I'm going to kick this one off because this was one for me. I think when I first got started, I bought too many cards out of retail. And I'm not saying retail is bad. I'm saying I wasn't really buying graded. I was buying a whole lot of packs, right? Because I want to go in the store and I want to feel the magic of opening that pack and say, oh, Zion's in there. Or, John Morant's in here. I've got it. I found this really, really exclusive card. But what I found out as I was kind of progressing is that, man, I'm going about this all the wrong way. What I really need to be doing is just buying graded cards, especially, with the cost of sending it out to get graded, the time it takes for it to come back. There are just so many other things. So I think that for me earlier, that was a pitfall. Not saying that anyone shouldn't go out and buy any retail, but I felt like I started buying it for the wrong reason, right? I was buying it to find the cards where the value to me isn't necessarily in, ripping. It's in holding the box and then maybe going to buy the card, from someone else that they found. So that was kind of a pitfall for me. Jeff, we'll kick it over to you. Kind of some pitfalls that maybe you had when you first started.
Well, that's a good one. That's something that is going to be really common for people to make the mistake of thinking that they're going to hit the lottery with that sort of thing, and the odds aren't really in your favor. If it's strictly from an investment standpoint, probably not the best way to go. But it's, it's fun. So like, there's nothing wrong with it if you want to do it for entertainment. Just don't do it if you're trying to make some money off it. The thing that I felt like I had to remind myself of early on, and like part of it was a good thing and part of it was a bad thing, but just that I wanted to act so quickly. I didn't really have patience. So anytime I saw a deal, I wanted to make sure I got it before someone else did, right? Whether it's sending an offer out or just seeing an auction and feeling like, oh man, like there's 5 minutes left, but I haven't done enough research on this card, but I feel like it's a good deal. I should bid on it. you can get carried away with that. So just make sure that the cards that you're looking at, you're really well researched on, so that you don't run into that problem. I think that the way to do that too is to just really figure out what your focus is going to be. And there are a lot of different ways you could do it. You can focus on just one player, like say, okay, I'm going to learn everything about Kobe Bryant and his cards and what those prices should be. So anytime they come up, I know what the value is that I'm going to jump on. Or with a specific set, like I started with NFL 2020 Prism, where it's like, all right, like I know what the inserts or what the parallels are for all these cards and what they're worth, and what a 1 out of 5 gold vinyl should be, and what a 1 out of 1 black should be. And it's like, you just have to know everything inside and out before you start to actually try and buy those things.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really good knowledge. Like, there is research involved in this hobby, right? Like, you can get burned so quickly by just, flying willy-nilly and saying, yeah, let me go ahead and, buy the first one I see. I think that's a great tip, Jeff. I know we've all kind of been there. Tambo, what say ye, sir? Some pitfalls that you had early when you started out.
Yeah, it was definitely the ripping of the packs, not just personally and not even knowing what I'm buying. So I think I thought I found wax at Walmart. I didn't know these cards are absolutely worthless. So I'm just buying those, ripping them. Then the second mistake was, I found the proper retail packs, the good stuff, this, Optic, Mosaic. Okay, these are better basketball cards, but let me go stash them. I heard you should hang on to the sealed wax, have a couple beers, couple drinks. I'm going to rip open this box tonight. Oh, that box was worth $300. Whoops, didn't find a Zion in there. So that's the second one. And then team breaks. And don't get me wrong, I love team breaks. I know we're going to have your boy Mikey on. We're going to talk about this. I think it's an important thing to bring up, and there is some fun in that. But I'll tell you right now, that was another mistake, buying into every break because I thought, this is going to be fun. And the entertainment side of it is great. I'm not saying don't do it. It's like you guys just said with opening packs, it's fun. But at the same time, like, for example, now I'll still do the odd team break, but I'll do it on something that's either hard for me to get. So let's use Select, like our buddy Jeff Wilson, when we had him on Select. I'll do it for that because you can't really get that product. It's so hard. Even in the United States, it's hard to get it. So, just the access to it, I'd rather buy in. It's almost like fractional ownership. I know it's not the best thing, but I'm only buying in because of that. So I would be a little bit more careful with that. And then just the research side of it in general, like you said, not doing enough on what's this card actually worth. There's one comp, and then taking that, we'll get into that probably on another show, just the prices that we're going off of here, but just there's one comp. You think, as long as I get it less than that, it's a good deal. But that's what one person agreed one time to buy. We talk in DFS all the time about sample sizes. Sample size 1 on a commodity or market that people don't know anything about is probably not the ideal number to be going off of. So you can make some big mistakes there. But again, as you learn and go on, you can always flip some negatives into some positives, not trying to take advantage of someone, just saying there is ability to, sometimes that can work in your favor, even by accident. Maybe you get the deal on a card where it just happens to be a better deal than what it maybe should have been, or what other people are now selling it at later because of the reverse theory on that same idea.
For sure. I'm with you guys 100%, man. I think you said something really key at the end, man. Like, when there isn't a market, if a market hasn't been set, like, we don't know what the value is, essentially. We can use comps. Like, for instance, if there's a 1-of-1 National Treasures versus a 1-of-1 Flawless versus a 1-of-1 Spectra versus what, like, we can kind of gauge that, right? Like, we've seen the prices. But, when there's, like, let's say, a 1-of-1 Hoops versus a 1-of-1 Court Kings, like, different things have to kind of go into play. Is it autoed? Like, what's the card quality? Like, there's so many things that go into it. So I'm with you, man. And like you said, someone may have agreed to buy it at this price once. Like, I've written this article about Mahomes and Brady, and that Brady, PSA 10 refractor on his Bowman Chrome rookie, it's up there like $250, right? And if someone buys it, does that mean the market should now be set at 500 when he retires? Like, we don't know. The card's so rare, you're not going to see a lot of them. So I'm with you 100%, man. Jeff, going to kick it back to you in terms of just tips, for the everyday investor. This is more catered to like a DFS player. What are kind of some tips you have, for them transitioning from like the DFS space to the sports card investment space?
Some of the biggest things is, again, it just goes back to research, but figuring out which positions have the most value relative to others. Just because you like a player in DFS and for fantasy, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be worth the same in, a Pat Mahomes versus a Travis Kelce in DFS might be comparable, but not in sports card trading. So
Yeah.
just make sure you understand the differences there. Baseball, like home run hitters, probably gonna pull more than stolen base guys. Like there are differences. One thing that I've pointed to for people is like, if I could come up with a comp, is I think about the jerseys that sell the most. Like that's kind of how it is with sports card trading. Not a lot of defensive players get their have a bunch of jerseys sold, and it's usually quarterbacks, right? Like it's usually for basketball, it's like the stars like Steph Curry and LeBron. It's not the random guy that really has no upside as a player overall, has no chance to win an MVP or anything. Like you want the MVP winners, the home run hitters, the quarterbacks, and the big playmakers. So like some receivers are going to have a lot of upside, of course, some running backs, but that's dangerous. And there's a lot of just kind of things specific to sports card that you need to learn.
Yeah, for sure. Tambo, I don't want to hold us too long. I'm going to kick it over to you, man. Same question, just some tips you have for transitioning out from DFS to cards.
I said this, I think, a little bit on the last show, but I'll tie it back in for those watching for the first time. I think one of the things is just like DFS is trying to find out what your niche is or your niche, whatever you want to call it, where you kind of find your own groove and what you're going to do. Because, Hefe mentioned earlier a little bit, people sometimes just go out and buy every card, right? I want some of this guy, some of that guy. Let me get some of him too. Oh, he's popping off tonight. FOMO is huge in this, but if you don't have your play or your plan coming in on what you want to get behind, then you can know it's okay to take, using DFS again and have like a contrarian stance or some game theory behind it where you're saying, if everyone's going to do this, I might go this route because I think this could happen. That's okay too. Or you can take some stances on, maybe someone mentioned earlier in the chat, I think it's a good one, some vets and things like that. You see vintage start to come back. So like you can take your stance and find your angle, but when you're trying to get into everything, then it's tough. Right? Then you're getting into a little bit more gambling. You're leaving yourself thin. Yeah, you're going to make money on these cards over here, but all these cards are dead and some of them are really dead. And now you're in trouble. That just cancels everything out. So if you're not focused and going after the same thing, there's so much opportunity to make money in this hobby right now, and just investing in sports cards in general. You can't do it all. Just like in DFS, it's not ideal. Some do it, but to play cash, to play large field, to play high dollar, low dollar, let me get a mix of everything. It's better to focus on one thing and spend the majority of your time there, reap the results that way, and build your way up and have that same plan in sports card investing. That's what I would say.
Yeah, man, I'm with you 100%. Devin, I do have a chart I want to pull up because I just kind of want to talk about while we're on that subject, like, as guys get hot, sometimes we'll see card prices increase. And I just pulled up Lonnie Walker because I know Lonnie Walker is a guy that kind of had a big game recently, DeMar DeRozan sitting out. And obviously, he was, people have bought back since October. But if you look at him since he's kind of come into, the starting lineup for most of the season, we're starting to see that his card prices have kind of been on the rise. So, back in, October, you could have bought a Lonnie Walker PSA 10 base prism for $51. And now if you look at it, we're already up to $105 here, just recently went up 59%. And then the Prism Silver, same thing. You could have gotten it for $127.50. And now that thing is all the way up to $260. So it's 103.9% increase. And I think you brought up something important there, just talking about, sometimes as guys pop, like we'll see those prices go up. And I think, when we're transitioning, right, it's all about, to me, like forecasting, and which is why, Tambo, I use Star Stock a lot, but I use Star Stock to flip cards or like raw cards, right? If I've got a beat on someone, like I think I remember recently, I saw that Dario Saric was coming back, and he's not a big name. Don't get me wrong, right? But I wasn't buying the Dario Saric cards to hold him. I said, hey, Dario's coming back. I went out into the field. Lo and behold, Dario Saric didn't have a lot of cards. So what I do? I bought all of them. So I set the market for the Dario Saric cards on Star Stock, and I didn't cheat anybody. I might have got it for $3 or $4, sold them for like $7. It wasn't any, type of long-term hold. But my point is, how for me, when I transition from DFS to sports cards, I kind of want to look at, like Tambo says, what are your goals? Well, for this type of player, my goal is to buy, and when they have the big game, I want to be priced efficiently so they're ready to sell right now. And then for me, I'll take those profits and park them and buy some other big names along the way. I do that pretty frequently, especially with baseball. Like, Jeff talked about baseball and home run hitters. It's no secret. I'm buying a lot of Rhys Hoskins right now because he's cheap, and he's going to have a game where he hits 3 home runs and everybody's going to run to eBay. And I would have bought him in January versus in April when he's already, the balls are flying across the fence. So, you got to know your goals. And that's kind of been how I've utilized my knowledge from DFS to transition put Rhys Hoskins in the lineup when he's 3,500 versus playing him when he's 5K in Coors. Like that's kind of the thought process I have behind it. So we're going to move to the next section, man. It's mail day, and we're going to crank out some cards. Jeff, over to you. Mail day card is going to be up on the screen. Let's talk about it, my friend.
We went with the Chris Dunn. I had some choices because I've bought a decent amount of cards recently, but this one is fun because it's the rookie patch auto, and like that's kind of you'll hear that as you get into cards. People want that combination of the rookie card, the autograph on the card, and then the patch. And then it's a fun brand too. National Treasures for basketball is a really good one. It's graded a 9.5. And if I had to kind of give someone some tips for, hey, what's the perfect kind of card to look for, it would be the characteristics of this one. And not only that, I think another thing that fits well with this card and wanting the profile of this card is you're buying low on a player, which you kind of talked about a little bit there, where it's like he's out of everyone's minds, right? Like no one is thinking about Chris Dunn because he's starting the season injured. And is Chris Dunn an amazing player? No, I'm much higher on him than everyone else. I think he could win Defensive Player of the Year. Like he's that kind of player. And awards do affect card prices for sure. But Defensive Player of the Year, maybe not as much. But I just think there's a lot of upside when guys are just kind of out of people's minds and they're not thinking about them, and you kind of strike right before the guy comes back and people start to remember, oh yeah, Chris Dunn, I think he's going to be good. And I think the prices on his cards are going to go up soon.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm with you. And like I said, when you sent that one in, I said, oh yeah, that was a fierce card, I think is what I said. I love that one. Tambo, over to you, my friend.
Yeah, I went, I told you guys in the last show, if this one came in time, I would pop it up. I'm pretty high on Jayson Tatum. A couple of reasons. One, I love the YouTube videos and stuff you go back to. I feel like CSU Ram or something talking about YouTube highlights. But if you go and watch Tatum and just the comparisons to Kobe, he says the reason he got into basketball was Kobe. I was a diehard Kobe fan since '97. I remember in high school and doing between the legs layups. I couldn't dunk. So when he busted out the Isaiah Ryder and won the dunk comp, that was it. He stuck with his team. I'm a pretty loyal guy. I like that. So I wanted to get behind that. And then the other thing was, this is the Father's Day special. There's only 5 of them. So it's numbered under the RC symbol there out of 5. There's only 1 PSA 10. So I was hyped about that, but my son's name, no relation or thought process, is Tatum. And I'm the father. So it's the Father's Day Tatum card, little special value there on a guy I'm already high on. That's my personal collection. Anyway, I got a lot of Tatum cards. I think the upside's there long-term. I think MVP seasons are possible, at least one. And so for me, it was just that. And when I saw it for that, the 5 out of 5 PSA, it's everything I wanted that I could get in a card, and just all lined up. And for once, my wife wasn't mad about a card that I bought because I was thinking about the kids, right? So I got a little lucky on that one too. Got a lot of cards showing up at the house. So when she's not mad about it, I'm in a good mood too.
Yeah, man. And then for me, I've got a Lonzo Ball crack dice. It's a PSA 9. But it's a short print, 7 of 50. Lonzo is someone that I feel like, Brandon Ingram's playing great basketball. Zion's playing great basketball, but I know he's going to have some games, right, where, he kind of goes nuclear, scores 30 points, has a triple-double. And, he's a guy I'm kind of on for that reason. I don't feel like, his card prices are, astronomical right now. But just a guy I'm kind of on. And then, I'm just kind of going to talk about this, and we'll get to some questions. Long-term, I saw, Jeff kind of talk about it in the chat. I will be buying LaMelo Ball exclusively. So first of all, it's my favorite team. So the Hornets are my team. He's a guy I'm going to hold, not really trying to flip, but I am going to try to, get as much LaMelo Ball as I can as he hits the streets. I just think he's a fantastic player. At someone he'll be starting. I do feel like he has star appeal. Like, in my opinion, if he keeps playing this way, he may be the next star coming along like a Tatum. I'm not saying he's on LeBron's level or anything like that, but I do think he has superstar potential. So He's a guy I'm going to invest in along the way. And so that wraps it up, guys. Devin, we're going to hit these questions, and I'll kind of go back up and see where we are in terms of the questions. But, one guy asked a question, where do I look up how much my cards are worth? Right. Jeff, I'll kick that over to you and we'll kind of move it around the horn.
Well, you mentioned Sports Card Investor and how you can go there, the market movers, and they've got the new app as well. That is just a kind of a quick reference way to look at it. I do a lot on my own spreadsheets and everything, but if I'm just looking through some listings or whatever, and I see a card that I know nothing about, I will use the app to give me a good starting point for expectation of what that card should be valued at and a decent range. You can look at the recent sales and also the current listings on eBay to give you an idea of what things are listed at and selling at. So with the eBay stuff, make sure you are getting a reference of sold items, not just things that are listed, because there are things that are listed way too expensive that'll never sell for those prices. And if you're using that as a comp, it's just going to throw everything off. So make sure that you've got multiple instances of a card being sold for around a price.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm with you 100%. Kind of going to go to the next question here. This is from Rob. It really wasn't a question, but I think it's something he want us to just talk about. Talk about the price discrepancies between proven commodities and Hall of Famers and prospecting. It's wild. Tambo, I'm going to kick that one over to you because there are some big discrepancies between Hall of Famers like Tim Duncan. I've got my thoughts on that. I do want to kind of chime in, but Tambo, going to kick that one to you, my friend.
Yeah, for me, it spells opportunity, right? If you think about it, you go back and look at it, there's definitely opportunity in those situations. Obviously it's what's hot and what's right now. But even when we talked earlier about Jeff Wilson and the card investor and things he's went through, like only 3 or 4 guys are relevant from every draft class each year. And then it goes down from there. So if you think about that, that's sort of why it is. And it goes back to people collecting too many. So for me, I'm looking for certain situations, but then you got to also know the who's who. So like Brady still shows massive value versus Rodgers doesn't. But is there an opportunity for Aaron Rodgers to still show value? If you feel that's the case, and this is what I was talking about earlier, you can get off the board a little bit. Maybe he won't show as much value as a Tom Brady, but it seems like there's an upwards trajectory there still where they should only go up. So I would go after something like that if I was looking at it. In basketball, you can relate it back. I'll let you go ahead with Tim Duncan. I think that's a more interesting one. This is the guy that always gets sort of just thrown out. He doesn't go on anyone's Mount Rushmore. He doesn't go on anyone's top players or anything that they get excited about, but damn good player. And like you said, no value really out there in the cards. What are your thoughts on that, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tim Duncan, I think there's upside as, because look, a documentary is going to come out about the Spurs, right? And Popovich and David Robinson and Avery Johnson, like it's going to come out, right? And I'm not saying it's coming out now, but I'm saying I'm sure it'll come out later. And I definitely think at that point, it will drive up some of the card prices. And I think at that point, you have to decide, hey, do I want to sell Tim Duncan or do I want to keep him for sentimental reasons? Now, me personally, I'm definitely going to keep, 1 or 2 Tim Duncans just because, I grew up watching Tim and Kobe and, that's my era of player. So that's kind of where I stand with some of what we consider all-time greats, but maybe just not as popular as a LeBron. Like we know LeBron pretty much has infinite upside, right? Speaking of which, articles coming out tomorrow, the Legend series, it'll be comparing LeBron and MJ's cards. That'll be dropping tomorrow. But like a Tim Duncan, he's big fundamentals. Like, he's not going to see the same upside. But I think there are opportunities that will happen throughout the course of the years. And then in terms of just the everyday player, I think the younger investor, they're buying who's hot right now, right? And so they're not as interested in Duncan. They're not as interested in Isaiah Thomas. They're not as interested in Magic. And I think, for our generation, I think we're probably all around the same age. We kind of grew up right in the middle, right? We got to see Magic play and Isaiah and Jordan and Reggie Miller and Patrick Ewing and a little bit of Bird. Like we've kind of seen them all. And then we had this era where we saw Dirk and we saw Wade and we saw Shaq. And so we've kind of rode the wave all the way through, and now we're watching Luka. So I feel like we've got a better breadth of guys that we're going to be investing in because we've seen them play. Whereas the younger investor now, a guy that's 20 years old, he's actually never seen Michael Jordan play a real game at all. He's just watched
Yeah.
clips in The Last Dance. And so while Michael Jordan's popular, he doesn't really know Scottie Pippen, John Stockton, Jeff Hornacek. Like, you know, we could go to some random players, but they have no clue who they are. And I think that's kind of driving, you know, the prices as well in terms of Hall of Fame guys, and then just prospects that we're just trying to buy into.
And if I could just chime back in quick, don't forget the guys in the middle. We just saw it recently, right? With Kevin Durant, Giannis. These guys weren't really, and Curry. These guys' cards were sort of stable, and then they really picked up. And everyone will say, oh, Gary V showed off his Kevin Durant. There's other ones, the Curry one, the Iverson cards, the Giannis cards. Those were all ones that he wasn't really talking about that did pop up. And the point is just people start to catch on. Remember, like we talked about from transitioning from DFS, when others are sleeping, some are working and they're going out and finding these opportunities. You know, another one that was mentioned the other day was PSA 9s as a whole, just chiming it back in again. Even if you go back to LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, these cards, PSA 8s back then, Jordan PSA 8, a LeBron PSA 8 are still worth money. There was actually a time just, 7 months ago when people were throwing these cards, not in the garbage. I'm not going to go that crazy with it, but they're saying basically, oh, that's just an 8. Well, guess what? If the 10 goes like this, the 8 can't just stay here. It has to be going with that. So you have to think about that. And there's so many opportunities. And then someone asked in the chat about PSA turnaround times, and it goes right with that same comment, is because of long turnaround times, weights. What if it's not a 10? What if they're grading harder? What if the situation comes out? That's why buying these things right now, in my opinion, even for some of these prices, are still worth it, because as things move on and transition, you could be down and out and wish, oh man, I didn't know it's going to be 5 months to get this card back and it's an 8. I could have bought that 9 in the meantime, or whatever it might be. So I think that's another thing to look out for, both modern and vintage or old, whatever you want to call it. I think that's one of the bigger points I want to make today, and just tying everything together.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think at that, man, I think that's a good way to close it out. My man Seven Costanza, he is telling us to get on NBA Top Shot. He said if we haven't, we're welcome. I am going to check it out.
Heard about it.
Jeff, my man, thanks for coming in, to the castle. You're welcome back anytime you decide. Jeff's over there at numberball.com, of course. My man Tambo. Last but not least, please, everyone, if you want the information, if you want the intel, definitely go over to sportscardinvestor.com. 20% off the first payment. That's 20% off the first month or for the year. Promo code Grinders will get you that 20%. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out at the castle. It's Card Stock Afterlock. We'll see you next week at 7:30.